Hi, welcome to our podcast. I'm Paul and I'm here to guide you over the next few weeks and introduce you to some people who are working in housing across Aotearoa, to introduce you to some projects and hopefully to help inform you about what's going on in the housing space so you can make some choices about the sorts of things you might want to get up to. In this episode I'm going to introduce you to Janice. She works with households and walks alongside them as they're on a journey towards home ownership. Hope you enjoy the show. Just to kick things off, this is our first podcast as the Housing Foundation, and really today we're here at Waimahia, which is a community near or in Weymouth, is it fair to say? And there are 291 households living here at the moment, is that right?
295.
Oh, okay, so here we are at the moment. Hello, by the way, Paul Gilbert and
Janice Thompson.
So we both work for the Housing Foundation. And so we're standing in the Kaumātua apartments, which are going to be blessed tomorrow. And then, Janice, can you talk us a little bit through how you're finding the households who are going to move into these apartments that we're standing in today?
I guess, word gets around pretty quickly around here. So we've got lots of people that have already moved into our houses in this development. So through word of mouth or being invited, going out to marae and churches all over the place. So we're just, actively getting out there and telling people about our beautiful apartments that are here for them.
Right, excellent. And so this project, I think one of the, tomorrow marks the blessing and the completion of the building of all of the 295 dwellings here. Going to be a special occasion for all of us tomorrow as we return some of the earth that was taken away, I think 4 or 5 years ago at the very, very beginning of the project. Can you just talk a little bit about what you're expecting to happen tomorrow as part of the celebration of the completion of the last buildings?
Well, apart from the formalities, I think it's just such a special occasion for us all. The fact that we were here, 4 or 5 years ago and just put a little porticom out the front in Weymouth Road and here we are tomorrow, completed all these houses, but more importantly, a community of people that love living here. Just seeing the kids out in the park there tomorrow and all their families is a pretty special moment, I think, for us all.
Yeah. I'm interested to understand from your perspective in terms of the broader community that already existed in this area before we started building these houses. How did we know that the sort of thing that's been done here was meeting the needs of the local community? What was the process that we went through there in terms of understanding local need?
Yeah, we had already been engaging with schools and, with neighbours and local residents and community groups, and we knew that there was a huge need here in Weymouth and Manerua already.
Mm-hmm.
And people, a lot of people were out in the open market and renting high unaffordable rents, and so it really wasn't rocket science to us, actually. You know.
Can you talk just a little bit to eligibility so that people can understand the sort of criteria for eligibility for Housing Foundation rent to buy and shared ownership products? What sort of circumstances do they need to be in, and where do they need to be from?
Yeah, so for our rent to buy product, households need to be earning between 55 to 95,000 a year gross, which can include wages as well as working for families tax credits. They need to be first-time home buyers as well. So if they already owned a property in New Zealand or overseas, then this really wasn't the development for them.
Okay.
And we were actually looking for a range of families as well. So, we've got 2, 3, 4 and 5 bedroom houses here in this development. They needed to be New Zealand citizens or permanent residents as well, and with a commitment towards owning these homes. It's easy to get a person into a house. It's also about being able to focus on, clearing debt, increasing your deposit, and being able to repay a mortgage later on as well.
Right. So that's the tough stuff there, because obviously there's a relationship between income and being able to do that sort of stuff. So there's quite a lot of detail, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, with the Rent to Buy program, so if someone, many of our families that come to see us and individuals might have debt that's $20,000 or more, and debt that's been, accumulated, whether it's through loans to banks, finance loans, credit cards, life. Student loans as well. So often that puts people off from even thinking about owning their own home. So coming through our Rent to Buy program, it gives them an opportunity to live in a home that we've built and have a period of up to 5 years paying an affordable rent.
Right.
And during that time being committed to clearing that debt. Right. If there have been any issues with bad credit, again, another barrier that puts people off from even dreaming or thinking about owning their own home. During this time, they're meeting with us and working together with us to be able to resolve those matters. And at the end of the 5-year period, switching over to our shared ownership product, shared home ownership, meaning that they're able to purchase at a minimum 60% of that market share of the house, so they're not having to come up with the whole price of a house, which again, another barrier, puts families off from even thinking about it. And also, just being able to do that in a way that they're able to afford, to make those repayments.
So how do you define affordability in that context?
Well, affordability for Housing Foundation is that a household, family are able to contribute, 30% of their total gross income. I mean, in anything further beyond that is unaffordable, you know.
And so you're experiencing households at the beginning of this process when they first contact the Housing Foundation who are living in different circumstances, unaffordable circumstances?
For sure, yeah.
Right, okay.
I mean, in saying that, we've got a lot of our households we meet who they're out on the open market, they're families that are working, they... I guess you could say that they are living comfortably, but the fact is that in the climate that we're in up here in Auckland is that at any moment their rental property could be sold by a landlord, and so just the fact is that it's an insecure situation for them, and so because families think that they'll never be able to own their own homes, then they may as well live comfortably, So this is the feedback that comes back to me because they work hard.
Yes.
If we're not going to be able to own our own home, we may as well live comfortably with our families and, get ourselves a nice car, take our family for a holiday and fill our houses with nice stuff, because we'll never be able to own our own home.
So that's a really important point there in terms of the finding the goal of a better future for the whānau and for the kids, right? Because there you're talking about some hard choices. You're talking about immediate sort of gratification, sort of the now, the here, but through a pathway towards independent home ownership, there's another alternative future available should people to choose, right? And so those are the choices that people are facing? Absolutely.
Once they come to us and realise, hey, there is a pathway that we could possibly own our own homes, and if these are the steps we need to take, then let's do it.
Right.
And families are committed. I've never met a family yet, a household yet, that have said to me, actually, we'll just keep on renting. We don't want to own our own home. Families do, a lot of the people we meet do actually want to, not just for themselves, provide a home for the now, but for the future. They're thinking about their children.
Yeah.
They're thinking about what they're going to leave behind.
Yep. Yep, that's powerful. So can you talk to me just a little bit from your experience with families that you meet perhaps for the first time out in a church hall or a school staff room or a community event? What are the barriers that you find for them engaging with us? What are the things that stop them? Are they nervous? How do they think or feel about this sort of stuff? Do they know about it?
Very shy, very nervous. I think just the mindset that, look, what you're saying is great, but it could never be for me.
Right.
Or it's going to be too hard, or, a lot of people think maybe that they've tried before. Maybe they've already gone to the bank in the past and they've been declined, so they don't want to be rejected or declined again, so they just don't try.
Right, because it seems when I've read stories of families, for a number of families, they come from intergenerational renting. Nobody that they know has ever owned a home, so it's sort of almost not available in their universe of choices as something that they see as possible. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's an assumption they make.
Right.
And so what we're offering is the death of that assumption.
Hooray.
And that there's actually some choices here, if I can put it that way.
So if we walked a little bit further down the pathway, let's say the families now have overcome some of those barriers and the fear of being rejected, and they've got to the point where they have actually proved that they're eligible and got into our process. Can you just talk us through, because here we are today standing in a completed home ready for someone to move into, and can you just talk a little bit about that process when we've engaged as Housing Foundation with a household and they get involved in choosing stuff, like here we are and there's lovely new carpet and colours and things. Can you just talk a little bit through that process?
Oh yeah, of course. So if we're at that point, of course they're really excited, but I must say that it would have been a process, a long journey.
Yeah, okay.
So they would have been going back and forth with us about, providing documentation, just working with us with their finances, working out, their household size. How is the house going to, what is the best suited home for them?
Right, depending on how many kids.
They might have... nan and koro living with them, and mum and dad and kids and moko. Yes. So we'd be thinking about a property, a home where maybe nan and koro could have a room downstairs, and a shower toilet downstairs as well. Yep. So they would have been through all this journey and then finally been offered one of our homes, and after that being able to choose the colours for the inside of the houses as well. So they get to choose their paint colours for the interiors, the curtains, the vinyl floorings, the carpets, the kitchen cabinet colours. Those are... and I think at that point it kind of becomes real. It becomes real to the family because they're actually seeing, carpet samples. Yeah. And I've had quite a few break down at that moment,
Yeah. Even if they're going into the rental program, they're getting to choose that stuff.
Yeah.
So doesn't that change the relationship that they have with the home that they're living in?
Yeah, because it's actually... they've been a part of choosing what their home looks like, but also they know that that rent money that they're paying is going somewhere to an asset that belongs to them and their family, where they can put their roots down and won't be needing to shift at a moment's notice from the landlord.
Right, so that
So it's that
you're speaking to
stability
stability,
that
right?
comes in.
Okay, so that really matters to people.
Absolutely. I mean, when you've got when you're working full time in your jobs and your kids are in the schools and you've got friends that you've built up over the years, you know, the impact of being told that your rental property is going to be sold from under your feet, and then you need to go and join all the other people that are looking for a home in your area, the amount of stress that puts on families is huge.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, what we're offering through our Rent to Buy program is that stability for 5 years, you know, to be able to pay an affordable rent as well. So I think when families are involved in the process right from the start and, you know, taken right through even with the financial planning, it empowers our families to know what's going to be happening, and we put the ball back in their court.
Right, gotcha.
You know, so we're not handing out a house. You know, we are offering an opportunity and a partnership with our families.
Yep. That financial capability and financial literacy stuff that you're talking about, and making those hard choices and helping families to get themselves ready for taking on a mortgage and the responsibility of home ownership is a big part of the work that happens, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, because, you know, it all comes back down to, you know, as you know, when we're working towards helping families to be able to secure an affordable home loan, our families need to be able to manage those repayments to the bank. But not just that, also the beautiful things that come along with and responsibilities that come along with owning your own home, like rates and house insurance and those wonderful things like that. You know, so if we're doing a lot of that work with our families earlier on, it shouldn't be a surprise to them later on.
Right, yeah, because that's quite a big change and a big difference in terms of the things you've got to think about and the things you've got to do when you move from being a renter who might not look after those things because their landlord might have been paying the insurance and the rates, and then you're transitioning and helping sort of, I suppose, move people towards that homeowner.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we have such a broad, wide spectrum of people that we engage and work with. We have a lot of people who come from renting who are excellent. You know, I mean, they've already been really diligent with their finances and everything like that. I mean, we have so many renters who actually just go straight into shared home ownership. Yep. You know, and they have been trying to save. We have a lot of families that come to us that had made the decision to live with mum and dad or in the backyard shed with their families to sacrifice so that they could save for deposit. You know, so we have so many people that have done that and now are in the shared home ownership program or Rent to Buy. So there's no one size fits all.
Yeah, each family, each household has its own story. Can you perhaps just share a few examples of or experiences of households now that they have been living in this community perhaps for 2-3 years? Some of them have been here, and some have progressed, I believe, all the way through to independent home ownership. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely
right.
True. Yeah. So you know, on average, we have people once they're in the shared ownership program are moving towards independent home ownership between 1 to 5 years.
Right.
You know, I mean that's I think our CEO would quote 4.79 years, I think he said last week.
Yep.
But we have some who had started out with us and entered in through our Home Saver Rent to Buy program and were able to then transition to shared ownership and have bought us out completely, fully, and are now looking at maybe seeing what else they could do to help one of their other family members. You know?
Right, so then you're kicking into the intergenerational opposite of the rental poverty trap. It's the intergenerational sharing.
It's inspired other family members
Yep.
to do the same as them, and some of them who now own their properties outright are able to use their homes to help some of their other family members,
To begin that same journey.
Same journey,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah. Have you noticed the overall impact of moving people along the housing continuum from either rent to buy through Home Saver and shared home ownership? Have you noticed changes beyond are there social changes? Are there employment changes? Are there health changes in their lives? What are the impacts that we've seen and heard about from the families?
Number one, I think, is health.
Right.
So our homes here, fully insulated and double glazed windows, all of that, Homestar 6 quality, I hear. So, but that has a direct impact where I know many families who were accustomed to taking their kids into the hospital or, to the doctors several times a year. That's reduced by half or less,
right.
Simply because the house is warmer.
Yeah.
Socially, I think that when you have a home that's stable, and just that security there, it does release a lot more of that stress emotionally and mentally on a family, and we find that here in this development as well, people tend to be, there's opportunities for our families to engage with one another, so they're socialising with their neighbours,
right.
And that's encouraged here. So just the fact that people feel, that they're able to, walk just a little distance to a park here. We've got 3 parks here in Waimahi. So there's a lot of, a lot of great impacts here,
right?
Other than the housing. Okay,
so people are starting to, once they're stable and secure, look out into the community and engage with the community more than they might otherwise. Because, one of the big things here, and Greg will elaborate on it later, but one of the great things here is that this community, that I think one of the best assets in this community are its people who are helping to drive, just whether it's Christmas events, being a part of safety teams here, environmental teams here. There are spaces that have been deliberately created so that if there are those that want to be a part of solution finding here, can do so. Yeah, awesome. Well, I think that's a really, really good place to wrap up podcast number 1. Thank you so much, Janice, for your time, and hope that it is the beginning of helping you all to better understand the sort of model that we're running here and how it works in this context, this unique context here in Southern Auckland. So thanks for joining us and look forward to podcast number 2. Cheers.